I'm playing something almost every week, and sometimes I want to talk about it and give you a vertical slice. So stick with me for some lightning reviews. This week on the chopping block. This week I've been playing The Oregon Trail. That's the remake that came out on the Switch a couple weeks back, not the original PC game that came out decades ago that kids played in their elementary school computer labs. Although I do have this nifty handheld version I bought for $20, played once, and now just look at on the shelf. Quirky novelty hardware aside, I did play one of the original versions on an old IBM computer lab machine back in the day, and I do have something of a reverence for it as a seminal piece of software, so when I saw it was getting a modern remake, I ordered a copy for the Switch, though it is also available on other consoles and Steam. The Oregon Trail, a game with an early version literally capable of being played on computers that operate off of paper punch cards, isn't a technical marvel, nor does it need to be. Starting off, we're presented with way more menus than I was expecting, but this betrays a game that I came to discover has an immense level of replayability if the game vibes with you. Apart from the main attraction of navigating the Oregon Trail, you can opt to take secondary paths, sometimes with varying objectives, pre-written characters, and unlockable items for subsequent playthroughs. I say subsequent playthroughs because unless you're a master at planning and have literal precognition, you are not going to succeed on your first run. That is, unless you decide to take the easy mode version just for sightseeing purposes. There's also the obligatory hardcore mode version for people that like to punish themselves, but now I'm getting sidetracked. The people you can acquire at the start of an individual campaign are randomly generated with different stats, abilities, and personality quirks that have a drastic effect in specific moments. For instance, you don't want to have a person with a messy trait being the person to apply bandaging and first aid when someone else gets injured. With that in mind, this game reminds me of Darkest Dungeon 2, but far less overtly bleak. You can even select your paths in a similar fashion and then watch your group navigate the trail and see what happens along the way. It's a low-intensity experience and good for relaxing with, but that doesn't mean you can entirely zone out. Secondary goals include documenting wildlife in the in-game journal, and you do that with a button press when they appear on screen. You then gain experience for I'm not entirely sure what, but I chalk that up to the positive mental reinforcement triggers needed to bring this game's rather basic formula up to a standard that matches modern game design for better or for worse. There's also chat dialogue segments that turn into QuickTime events that can have consequences for your party members. Lastly, the game includes an autosave feature and also gives some quality of life improvements, such as being able to hire a guide to have a fresh start from the last major settlement you reached, ensuring that most will be able to complete the game eventually. Speaking of which, getting back to my initial run, my first party seemed to be doing rather well until we hit the final third of the trail. Then, in the span of a single section, 2 of my cohorts died, and 1 ran off after fighting with the one who became my last member. Funnily enough, between her competent stats, abilities, and only needing supplies for 1, I thought she'd make it, until she got 1 mile out of the last major settlement before the destination, broke her leg, and died. That's a big thing to focus on too, because luck plays a significant role from moment to moment. Unfortunately, that's also where the game becomes the most frustrating. While luck favors the prepared, this game can relish shitting on you, especially when minor side objectives and rewards are dependent on whether or not a bear comes up and decides to break your arm. Also, rivers! The second 20% of my journey was under starvation conditions after my wagon tipped, I lost all my food, and my group was grossly ill until I stumbled into the next town. Then again, while specific scenarios may be a stretch, the Oregon Trail wasn't a notoriously difficult journey with an estimated 20 to 30,000 people perishing on the journey, so historically it does a decent job of driving that point home. Actually, the historical value of the era this game portrays is worth noting. With the trend of historians bringing to light that America had a bit of a genocide issue with the indigenous peoples, the game seems to be attempting to showcase matters in a slightly more balanced and accurate perspective. Oh boy, I get to attend this treaty signing. I'm sure the United States will honor the conditions, and I can't wait to see how they're doing at their encampment at Sand Creek in 15 years. Gallows humor aside, while I don't see myself devoting too much more time to this game, I did enjoy what time I spent with it. While the original and very basic formula from way back when is still intact, quite a bit has been added and expanded to make this an engrossing title for those with a penchant for low-intensity, strategic, or historical games. And all these years later, I can calm my inner 10-year-old by saying that I finally made it to Oregon. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm putting the final touches on an angry rant script. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Remember that I give away Steam keys with my regular weekly uploads, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment and have contact info on your YouTube profile. But as always, thanks for watching and keep your head on your shoulders.